Welcome to Rocket Green Radio with your host Antonio Saillant, where we bring you eco pioneers to give them a voice. That's right. And today, actually earlier today, I interviewed this amazing filmmaker who directed a documentary film, River's End, California's latest water war, and the film's going to be released by Giant Pictures. And the film will be available on demand on Apple TV, Amazon, Google Play, etc., and major cable platforms like Comcast, Spectrum, and AT&T, and so on, and wherever you get your amazing films. This film was an eye opener, and I recommend it to everybody who wants to know what's going on in the world when it comes to the water crisis. And with the recent expansion of the drought state of emergency in California, this powerful documentary has never been more relevant as it tackles the root causes of water problems, revealing the complex behind the curtain view. River End is vital viewing for all of us in areas where water security is threatened. Sadly, it's growing list worldwide, and that's a true fact. The fact that he picked California is a pure example of something that is escalating all over the world. And it was a 15-minute interview. I want you all to enjoy it, and I'll catch you in the back end. So God bless and enjoy. Okay, so today's interview is with Jacob Morrison. He's the director of the documentary film River's End, California's latest water war. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
This documentary, with its amazing visuals and interviews, they were truly an eye-opener that provided me intriguing insights into the water crisis in California. And let me tell you something. A lot of times when I jump into an airplane and I go towards California, or actually anywhere, Syracuse, when I'm getting closer, I always look down, and I don't like what I see because I see a lot of dead grass, dead things, and I remember going, and when I landed, as soon as I got to the hotel and I got to the hotel room, right away there's a big sign that says, take a 5-minute shower. Which again, I was happy, but I was always concerned. I'm a sustainable guy. I'm an energy guy before the entertainment business. I was an energy consultant for many years. So this film was really an eye opener for me. And I just want to congratulate you on winning the 2021 People's Choice and Jury Award. Bravo for that, because this is the kind of film that we need to see. I think everyone needs to see this. How did you come up with the title of the film?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you very much. That was very kind of you. Uh, so I guess I don't really remember how I came up with it, but I think the reason why we liked it was because the film focuses on this one area in California called the Bay Delta, which is where two of California's biggest rivers meet. And so the delta is the river's end, but there was also this other meaning of, rivers ending and that they would be going dry. And there's a quote in the film that says exactly that. So it just sort of fit for the story we were telling.
Right. Can you give a brief explanation of your film for our audience?
Yeah, so River's End focuses on California's water wars as sort of a way of talking about water issues in general. And because California is really sort of the front line for these issues in many ways. And the film focuses on this area called the California Bay Delta, where 2/3 of Californians get at least some of their water. It's also an amazing ecosystem and estuary where you have, salmon and all these other, amazing birds and wildlife, as well as small farms that kind of are made up on these small islands that are in the middle of these waterways. It's a beautiful place. It's kind of like the Shire in Lord of the Rings or something. It's amazing. But it's also become the battleground of California's water wars. And so you have these big interests like massive agricultural corporations in the Central Valley, south of the Delta, as well as cities like Los Angeles and San Diego, but also San Francisco, trying to take as much water as they can out of the Delta. And so it's really kind of the place to look if you want to understand how these issues work more broadly.
Right. When you had the idea for this film, did you use the water politics of California to explore a more major problem, which is the global water crisis?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, water is a local issue in a sense because everyone has their own local watershed where they get water. But the themes and the problems are very similar around the world.
Right.
It's often the case uh, that agriculture uses a lot of water. I mean, it's the same statistic worldwide as it is in California that 80% of water is used by agriculture. And in many cases, in like places like Africa, like you see rivers going dry because of water being overused by agriculture. So that's a major theme. Um, but yeah, I mean, we could talk for hours about that. But
Sure.
yeah, definitely, I think if you watch the film, you'll have a lot of takeaways. Really, no matter where you are, it shouldn't matter.
Yeah, well, I enjoyed the film. I mean, I thought it was amazing. How did you get the people that were interviewed in the film? I know that I watched one of them. He's like, I forgot what his name was, but he said, "Don't piss me off" or something like that. you know, uh, why did you keep that in the film itself? Did you want to show that? Like the pros and the negatives of people being interviewed.
Well, I guess first of all, it was a long journey getting everyone in the film. There was like 70 people that we interviewed, and this was a project that started all the way back when I was in film school at USC. So it was just like every time you go and talk to someone and learn more and realize that there's another person you have to talk to or another field of study or something you didn't even think about. And you kind of go down the rabbit hole and learn and start to see the web of who are the people in power and what are the structures and the systems involved in this story. And I was very interested in that idea of like, what are the systems? Because it's not usually individuals that have so much power. Can be, but oftentimes it's like Westland's Water District or the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California that really control water in California. Anyways, so I don't know. I think the reason why I included that piece was because um, he was someone who supposedly works for the Coalition for Sustainable Delta, which is supposed to be a think tank that is researching the delta and and water issues in California, and um, but it's actually funded by the Wonderful Company. If you look at taxpayer documents,
Sure.
and the Wonderful Company is the largest farm in California.
Wow.
The Wonderful Company uses more water than all the homes in Los Angeles combined, and they grow things like almonds and pomegranates, and they also own uh, Fiji water. But that it was like it became clear to me that maybe he's representing a business interest, and he's not really trying to look at the science as it is. And so when I started just asking questions about, hey, well, what you're saying there doesn't really make sense given what I've heard from this person or what I've read here, that his response was, "Don't piss me off," I think says a lot about him and where he stands. So that was why I would include that. Yeah.
Sure. What inspired you to tell this particular story?
Well, so was really inspired during the height of the last drought, right around when Jerry Brown was declaring a state of emergency, which, by the way, we now have again in California. So it's interesting how that history keeps repeating itself. But I was fascinated reading about how there were towns in the Central Valley where their wells were going dry and they had no water, but there were neighboring farms that did have water because they were drilling deeper and deeper wells to drain that aquifer, which was then imperiling these towns. And just sort of the idea of the privatization of water resources and who got to control the water, I thought was very interesting. But I could never have imagined that I was making a feature film when I began. It just sort of, you just realize that that's the scope of the story, and then you just chase it.
Right. Using the famous film Chinatown, starring Jack Nicholson, I think that was brilliant. Totally remember that film. You know,
Great film.
and to think that the draining of the Owen Valley continues even to this day. To me, this is an example of human failure towards nature. We as humans do not listen. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think you're right. In California, at least, we have this history of going out and taking water from one place and destroying that place to take water somewhere else and benefiting that other place. And uh, that's that's the pattern that keeps repeating itself in terms of water infrastructure. In the Owens Valley, it originally happened when there used to be Native Americans that lived there happily, for a long time, and then uh, white settlers came in and drove them out of their land and used their water, and then Los Angeles came and drove those people out of their land by taking their water, and I think now we're doing it on a much bigger scale with the Delta. Say what you will about this tunnels project that's in the film, and nonetheless, I mean, we're just taking water from the Delta and just currently destroying the Delta. So we keep doing it, and you're right. I think we're just people care about people. It's very difficult to get people to care about species, and you see certain species that are less charismatic, like this little 2 or 3 inch fish called the Delta smelt, get scapegoated because people like to say that, oh, farmers don't get water because we have to give water to this fish so the fish doesn't die, and we're putting this little fish over people. But of course, it's not true, and I can talk more about that. But you know, salmon are going extinct. Delta smelts are basically already extinct, but because they're such a little tiny fish, it's a good scapegoat.
I think what's happened is I believe that people do not understand. Well, people do, but higher ups, when it comes to corporations, don't understand the theory of the ecosystem and the fact that when you have a certain fish that becomes extinct, it it sends a chain reaction all over to the
Yeah,
whole, even to the point where it even gets to us humans. So what they don't see is that the future might be us humans could become extinct. I think
yeah,
that's what it comes down to. Because I did not know that when they pulled the fresh water out of the river, that the salt water, the ocean water, was getting into the river themselves. I did not know that. I knew it. It does make sense if you think about it. Um, and I think that's what the danger is. Correct? Because then
yeah.
the farmers use it, and it's not good for the crops.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, there's a lot there, but yeah, that issue is that the delta is connected to the ocean. So if you take more water from the delta, which and the delta is connected to these rivers, take more water from the delta, then the ocean water flows into the delta. The delta becomes more saline, and so in theory, then the aqueducts would be carrying salt water and not fresh water. So there's a very precarious balance of how much water can you take and how much do you have to keep flowing out of the river and out of the delta and out into the ocean so that the salt water doesn't come in. And it's unfortunate because people I think like to conveniently use that as like, oh, we're wasting all this water out to sea. Why are we flushing water out to sea when it could be used to grow more crops? But the reality is you have to have some water flowing out, or everyone's gonna have salt water. A, and then B, that assumption means that we just don't care about any ecosystem. I mean, if we wanted uh, to not leave any water in our rivers, because that's what we're talking about, then you're right. I don't think humans would ultimately survive that. I mean, we like to think that we're this species that's like not a part of the animal kingdom and is completely outside of the
How did
ecosystem.
you get your team together to produce this film?
Yeah, okay. So originally it started with me and my producer and cousin Sam Fury. We wanted to do something together. And then we were looking for a cinematographer. I went to USC, he went to Chapman, and he had known an older cinematographer who had graduated already from Chapman that we pitched the project to, and he was interested in and joined the team. And that was a great collaboration. And for really the majority of filming, it was just me and him going out on shoots. But at a certain point, after graduating, realizing we had a feature film on our hands, we knew we wouldn't be able to kind of just finance that ourselves. So, fortunately, I had been working on a excuse me, a television series, and I had met a producer named Kirk Kittleson, and at the wrap party, he asked me what I was up to, and I just like kind of told him about this film and mentioned it offhand, and he was like, "Oh, well, I'd love to start you off with some money," and I like kind of couldn't believe it, but it ended up being real. He wasn't just pulling my leg, and yeah. So that was a very very small team, but that way I got to learn how to do everything. So it was fun.
Okay, this will be the last question. What do you hope to accomplish with this film, and what's your message? Do you hope that people listen before it's too late?
Course, yeah. So I think the main message I want to get across is for people to learn where their water comes from, wherever they are, because without that bare minimum level of interest, things are never going to change, and things really need to change. So yeah, I think learn where your water comes from, and in fact, if you go to our website, which is riversendfilm.com, and go to the resources tab, we actually have a tool that we put on the website where you can plug in where you live and find out where your water comes from. So I recommend people do that, and I think that's a good first step.
Wow, very good. So where can we view this film? It's released on November 2nd, but where exactly can we go and view?
Yeah, so it's available on demand, really wherever you get your stuff. So you can find it on iTunes, Apple TV, Amazon, Google Play, Xbox, you name it.
Right. So I want to wish you well and thank you very much for this wonderful film. I think it's going to do very well, and I'm going to send it everywhere, all my people, because, like I said, before the entertainment business, I'm an energy consultant too. So I think this film will help a lot of people understand. Uh, and we have the climate change crisis, but this is also a huge crisis too.
It is. It is.
It was an eye opener for me, and I just want to thank you, and I wish you well. God bless, and good luck.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me on the show. It's a pleasure.
Thank you. Hello, Antonio Saillant, back here and Rocket Green Radio. And Richard Solomon, he's away, and he'll be back soon to join me on further interviews on Rocket Green Radio. And I hope you enjoyed this 15-minute interview. And I hope that everyone gets to see this film. Like I said, the film will be available on demand on Apple TV, Amazon, Google Play, and so on, etc., and as well as most major cable platforms, including Comcast, Spectrum, and AT&T, or wherever you get your wonderful films. And it was really an eye opener. And I hope that everyone gets to see this film so you get a view of what's happening, not just in California, but all over the world, you know. And because we do have a climate change crisis, but this is also a major crisis too, water, and um, when you get to watch the film, you're going to see that certain fish are being extinct, and it's affecting the ecosystem of our planet. And before you know it, if we keep it up, humanity will be extinct. And I have a quote, and it goes like this, and I believe in this quote, and we all put our thinking caps and start thinking smart. This is actually the solution to our problems. If you really, really listen to this quote, If humanity saves nature, nature will save humanity. Okay, I leave you with that. And see the film. God bless, and talk to you soon.